So now we're finally there. We're going to talk about the Beast, and the Beast becomes the Beast that everyone knows is the Beast. How many times can I say Beast? So our beautiful blue-furred skinned person that most people recognize as the Beast, he becomes that way because in this issue, issue 11 of Amazing Adventures, I think that's what it's called. I'll correct it if I'm wrong. Beast graduates from the X-Men and gets a job at Brand Institute, which is like a top research company in the country. And it's in this issue that we get introduced from the X-Men perspective to the Secret Empire. It's not called the Secret Empire in this, but we meet various members of that, which kind of wraps up in the future in a big kind of crossover event with the X-Men Captain America and the Falcon, when Captain America kind of is like, I'm fucking done with this shit. And nopes out. So but the issue starts off with the Beast. I mean, he's Gray Beast, and I can't remember when he turns blue, but he's gray for a little bit, and then he's blue, and then the gray thing comes up later, and they try to explain it away. But Gray Beast is attacking somebody who's trying to sneak in and steal stuff from the company he works at, and then by the time he gets back to his office, he realizes that he's been Gray Beast for too long, and now he can never turn back into regular old fun Beast, the human form. And then he's sad. He sees the picture the X-Men gave him when he left to work for the Brand Institute to study mutations. And he throws it across the room. And then we recall him saying goodbye to all his old friends, graduating, if you will, from the X-Men team and moving on with his life. And, a lot of hugs and kisses and, sad stuff. And then he comes to work and he immediately gets accousted by some asshole who works for the Secret Empire, we find out. But he gets hired to essentially just do his own research on mutation based on a paper he wrote. And then he gets introduced to Linda Donaldson. And Linda Donaldson, by the end of this issue, we find out that she works for she's number 9 in the, she's referred to as number 9. We don't get the words the Secret Empire, but she's a member of the Secret Empire, and she is dating Beast, and we find out much later for very, very nefarious purposes. But he's so surprised because he has a lot of ego issues, not ego, self-esteem issues, right? And they're like, bro, you were dating Vera or whatever before. She was a babe, kind of, if you're into librarians and stuff. But she's a hot blonde chick and, beautiful and smart and all this good stuff. So anyway, she kind of seduces him a bit. And that doesn't play too much of a role. We just see them going on dates and giving smooches in the moonlight and stuff like that. But then he makes this big discovery about mutation, and he creates this concoction. And the one professor, I can't remember his name, he finds out about it, and he calls and talks to number 9 and talks to some other people, and Beast overhears him, so he realizes they're going to send somebody to steal his stuff, so that's why he turns into the Beast in the first place. All right, so we went all the way back, and now we're back to the present. So then the Beast is freaking out because he can't transform back into his normal form, and he's like, I'm going to get revenge. So he goes and beats the shit out of some goons that work for the professor, and he almost strangles the professor to death. He's strangling him in his hands. He's like, no, I will not kill him. I will leave. And then he bashes through the glass and is like, da da da. And right before this happens, the professor calls number 9 and warns her. We don't know what's a her yet, but we'll find out pretty quick that this is happening. And then after Beast is gone, the guy's laying on the ground. He's like, no, number 9, what are you doing? And then number 9's like, I'm going to dispose of you. You failed the Secret Empire. And she goes, bang, bang, bang. And then we see it's Linda Donaldson. Dun, dun, dun. So Beast has a problem. He's a beast and he can't turn back. So what does he do? He sneaks back into the Brand Corporation and he finds a makeup book, and then he breaks into a costume shop and he gets a bunch of, I don't know, rubber, silicone. He makes himself a Hank McCoy mask and some gloves so that he can go about being human. But the Beast is all kind of hunched over and stuff, like a beast. And so he has to get some straps and strap him up. So he finally has a costume, so now he can go to work and function and not be quote unquote the Beast. And pretty incredible. He is a genius, so I'll give him a little leeway. He also, Jean Grey and Professor Xavier try to contact him because they feel a tremor in the force, essentially. But he rejects them outright. And so they're like, all right, we're just going to let him be. So the next day, Beast goes to work, and he's a little snippy and snappy at people, right? Because he doesn't have full control of his Beast persona yet. And but his boss is like, hey, I'm going to send somebody to come check you out. They got grants and investments and whatnot. And it's Tony Stark. Tony Stark and him start having a good conversation. And then Linda meanders in. Linda Donaldson, remember, who's a member of the Secret Empire, but is also dating Hank and is his lab assistant. And so there's some back and forth there. And at this point in time, Tony is dating Marion, or that's his personal assistant at least. And she has like clairvoyant powers, so she can get like, or not clairvoyant, more like highly in tune sense of other people. It's like there's a term for it. Very empathetic. Not empathetic. Yeah, it's kind of like an empathy. So she gets like a bad vibe from Linda, obviously, but she makes a big deal about it. And so Hank's like, well, you know what? I was going to hang out with you and talk, Tony, but screw off. So then he heads out, tracks Linda down. They like chit chat and flirt, and she tries to kiss him, and he's like, "Oh no, let's just go eat." That evening, he's Beast doing Beast stuff, meandering about, and he bumps into Iron Man, right? Because Tony Stark's Iron Man, and because of the warning of Miriam and her empathy, he's like, "I gotta go check this Linda Donaldson chick out." So they fight a little bit. Iron Man seems to beat the Beast when some guards show up, and Linda is like, "No, that's Iron Man. He's a good guy. We should leave him alone." And the Beast comes out of being beat up, recovering very quickly, and he's like super pissed off. And so he beats the crap out of Iron Man. And then he stops. And then there's like a whole thing where he gets like shot with bullets a bunch of times and like, but heals real quick. And I don't remember that being a power the Beast had ever. But I don't know if it's like non-canon at this point or if it was canon at the point, because he thinks he kills Iron Man and some of the other people that are standing around. And then he freaks out and runs away. And then Iron Man's like, "That's weird." And Linda's like, "What happened?" And he's like, "He was like punching me and stuff. I mean, I'm obviously fine. I'm in like an iron suit." And then he just stopped and was like, "Oh no, I killed Iron Man," and jumped out the window. Like, very odd behavior. And it's odd because the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants is back, and we see Unis, the Blob, and Mastermind all standing outside. And Unis is like, "I don't get it." Mastermind's like, "Of course you don't get it. You're just a brute." I use my powers to make the Beast think he killed a bunch of people so that we can trick him into joining the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." Now, how did they find out about the Beast? No idea. I don't think they think it's Hank. They just kind of like figured it out, came over, and are running with it. So the Beast is on the lam. He's scared and at himself, and then Mastermind and them are after him. So going back to the bullet thing, I don't know if the bullet thing was something he imagined because of Mastermind, or if he actually is not bulletproof, but he gets shot a couple times. He can like heal, like his healing factor is significantly increased, like Mr. Wolverine or not. We'll see if we get clairvoyance clarity on that. Issue 13 of Amazing Adventures has Mastermind regale what occurred in the previous issue, as they do, and also discuss his powers and how Unis and the Blob are very defensive oriented, as in the Blob can't be moved and Unis can't be touched, but Mastermind is offensive because he can control minds and stuff. And then he uses the illusion of fire to get the Beast to come back to them. Unis and Blob kind of hold him down, and then they explain the whole thing. And Beast's mind at this time is so fractured and so confused that they're able to essentially trick him into joining their Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. They take him back to the carnival where they can hide and kind of plan stuff out. And then Mastermind reveals that they're going to go steal like the largest diamond in the world out of this somewhere in like New York City. And that they're going to get people to analyze it, to buy it, give them a bunch of money, and then he's going to give them like a false one at that point. So, because they're like, "Well, why can't you just create an illusion of it?" And we saw that, and they're like, "Well, because they're going to investigate it very closely." And he says something about, he makes mention that his illusions are very good, but they can be overridden if people are like too knowledgeable about the subject, more knowledgeable than he would be, essentially. So if you understand too well about what's going on, then when you're trying to investigate like the gemstone, you'll see things that don't make sense, and then they'll be less likely to purchase. So if they have the real thing and then they switched out with the illusion, perfect plan. Meanwhile, Hank has not shown up to work, and Iron Man was attacked by a beast at the Bain Corporation. So the government sends Baxter, who is an Air Force security officer, and his wife, for some reason, to go investigate. And they come and they try to find Hank, but he's not around. And so then they go find Linda, who's his secretary, right? And they start questioning her, and she gets very concerned because, again, she's a secret agent for the Secret Empire. And so she's like, "Oh no, they're going to find out what I'm doing. I'm in charge of Hank. What happened to Hank?" Because she doesn't know he's the Beast either. So no one knows who the Beast actually is at this juncture. And so there's a lot of concerns and confusion about that whole situation. Baxter and his wife head off to Hank's place to see if he's home, and no one answers there either, obviously, because Hank's at the carnival or with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So he's about to break in, and his wife's like, "You can't do that. That's illegal." And he's like, "Oh, you dumb woman, I'm going to do what I want." And she's like, "Haha, I know, you're just teasing me." So good. But a woman's watching them from the dark, and she's like, "Did they say Hank McCoy? I need Hank McCoy. He's the only one who can save my life." And then the Stanley or whoever's writing at this point is like, "Who is this mysterious woman? We will find out later." And we don't in this issue. But so we go back to Hank. They very successfully and very acrobatically get Hank up into the building. He steals the gem without any problems, but he starts remembering more and more stuff. Like he thinks about like the danger room essentially in Westchester, and he starts being like, "What is this about?" So he brings him back the gem, and then him and Mastermind get into an argument, and then some douchebags show up to like fight mutants because Mastermind loses control of his illusion. The Mastermind uses like a giant dragon to scare them off, and they all head back to the carnival. So once back at the carnival, Beast like kind of finally like remembers who he actually is. So he like fights them and ends up getting the Blob and Unis trapped inside a like carnival cage where Blob is like in the air, and so he can't like plant himself, and then he keeps bouncing off Unis who can't be touched. So they're just like bouncing around in this cage kind of like forever essentially. And then Beast goes and tracks down Mastermind to get the diamond back, and Mastermind's like, "Oh, there's nothing you can do. My illusions are so powerful." And then Beast is like, "I can see through your illusions. I'm much smarter than you think." And so he starts coming at Mastermind, and Mastermind's throwing all these dragons and crap at him, and Beast just like walks up and like claws at him, not to like kill him, just like tear some of his robes up, and then that kind of breaks Mastermind's brain. So he becomes like a blobbering idiot, and then Beast on a payphone calls the police and says, "Hey, that diamond that was stolen, it's at the location of this payphone, so if you can just track it, you'll come here." And then the people who did it are here, so you can take care of that. And then he meanders off. So the Beast finally tracks down Iron Man now that he's free of the grip of Mastermind and apologizes. But unfortunately, Iron Man's in the middle of like some missile testing or thing or whatever, and so Iron Man's like, "What are you doing?" And then some guy shows up, and like the guards are like, "We got him, Iron Man!" And they shoot him, and the Beast is like, "Nah, it's cool. I got a healing ability. Don't worry about it." And Iron Man's like, "You fool, you're fired." And he calls Beast a man twice instead of a beast, and Beast is very grateful about that. And they like shake it out, and they're like, "You're my friend," and they're like friends forever. And then Beast heads out. He gets back to his place, and he's kind of like tapped out and tired. And he's like, "I don't know what to do with myself. I'm beat up." And then he gets a ring, and it's Linda, and he's like, "Oh shoot, I can't let her in." So he lets her in, and he has like a spare mask that's a little messed up, but he doesn't have like his brace or his gloves or anything like that. So she comes up, and he's like, "Oh sorry, cough cough, I'm sick. I can't kiss you or be close to you or anything right now." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. Let me rub like gel on your belly." And he's like, No, I don't want you to get sick. Just get out of here." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So she leaves, and she, is like, "Oh, something, I'm evil. I'm doing bad things." So he decides he's going to go race back to the lab to get like his actual gear, because that's where he left it before he fought Iron Man. And he does it by like breaking into the building and jumping through a window, and like all these guards are chasing after him, and like Captain Baxter or whatever is there, and he's super concerned. And then they're all like firing or running into the building, and then Hank just like wanders up. He's like, "Hey, what's going on over here?" And then Baxter's like, What do you mean what's going on here? We've been looking for you for days. Where have you been?" And he's like, "Oh, I've just been with Linda." And Linda's there, and she's like, "No, you haven't." And he's like, and then Baxter's like, "I don't know what's going on, but you're lying. So I want you in my office at 9 o'clock tomorrow so I can figure out what's going on." And then they leave, and then Hank's like, "Ruh-roh, I'm in trouble." And then Linda's like, "Ruh-roh." And she's like, "Hey, sorry, I couldn't lie to the Air Force," or whatever. "I love my country." And then she has a thought bubble. It's like, "But this isn't my country." Ho, 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 ho. Goodness. And so Beast is like, "No, it's okay." And she's like, "I love you." And he's like, "I love you too." And so then he's like, he goes back to the lab, and he's trying to figure out a way to cure his like Beast transformation so he can be with the girl he loves, Linda, who's just using him for secret reasons that we'll find out later. And he creates a concoction. Oh, at some point they're like, "Oh, we found the Beast. He's over there," and they all leave, and that's why they kind of leave him alone. And he's like, "Huh, I wonder what that's all about." So he goes back to his lab and creates a concoction to like cure himself, and he drinks it, and then he gets accosted by Quasimodo. And you may ask, who is Quasimodo? And I will say he tells Beast that he is the living computer, and that the Silver Surfer created a body for him. He's like a Final Fantasy. He's a Fantastic Four villain, according to the little blurb here. But I guess he's a computer that can like make processes and reprogram itself, and he's strong, and he's got like a laser eye. Anyway, we get a battle between him and Hank for a while, and they're fighting on girders at some point, even though they were just at the Bain or Brand Corporation or whatever. So that was kind of funny. But then Beast realizes at some point that he has lost some of his like super healing powers and some of his agility, like some of the new mutant powers that he's got. He still looks like a beast. He looks less like a beast, I want to say, but he's still he's lost some of those other powers too. So he's about to get beat to death by Quasimodo, and then Quasimodo has like a logical error or something where he determines that he's a monster and so he must kill himself. So he does. All right. And then Beast is like, huh, well, that was interesting. And that's that's issue 14 of Amazing Adventures. So now that Beast is back to some regular activity, the X-Men are again concerned. Well, mostly Warren. Warren mentions that he's read some stuff about a Beast being at the company where Hank's working, and he decides he's going to go check it out and make sure he's okay. Meanwhile, we get some more information on Linda. She gets into an argument with number 1 with the Secret Empire, because now we have a name, and now it's referencing that whole shebang that's going on, and kind of referencing back to the prior number 1 and the prior number whatever, and all that good stuff's going on. So, and she also we find out the mastermind and those guys were sent by the Secret Empire, and so is Quasimodo, and so is the next villain, which is the Griffin. So the Beast is out and about doing stuff, and then he gets attacked by the Griffin. The Griffin is a guy who was a punk rock guy, it seems, in New Orleans, who got like a lion's mane and lion's paws and wings grafted onto him by the Secret Empire so that he could be a total douchebag. So good for him, I guess. He got what he wanted. But Beast and him have a little fightsy, and Beast starts to win. He's still weak. He still doesn't have all his like healing factor and all that crap. So but he's able to beat him. But Warren flies up right when they're like having a tussle, and he doesn't know who to trust, right? But then the Beast, the Griffin starts fighting with Warren at that point, even though he like went to save him. And so he gets tossed, but then Beast jumps down and rescues him, and then the Griffin flies off, and he's like, Warren, it's me, it's Hank. And he's like, oh, Hank, what's up, buddy? And then they have like a chit-chat about that whole situation, and then Hank's like, oh, shoot, I gotta go to that appointment with the Captain Baxter. Oh, I totally forgot. Before all that happens, Beast is injured, right, from the Quasimodo fight, so he stumbles into the Baxter home for some reason, with the captain's wife, and she like heals him up and talks to him and makes sure that he's okay. And then they like plan out something, or they have like a chit chat, and then he like pieces out. This is all before the fight. So the next morning, we have Baxter with his wife waiting to meet with Hank, and he comes in with Warren, and he's like, hey, my buddy's visiting from my old prep school. Do you mind if he comes in? And Baxter's like, I do mind. And he's like, come on, bro. It's not that big of a deal. And his wife's like, oh, sweetie, just let him bring his little frenzy. And he's like, all right, whatever. And then he's like, where were you the last few days? And he's like, I'm sorry, I was with this guy hanging out. And he's like, that's not what you told me the other night with your girlfriend. And he's like, oh, yeah, I don't want to say anything because we were getting to a fight about a woman and something. And I didn't want to make her mad when she was standing there, but then she bailed on me because, the weaker sex and such. And then he's like, I don't know if I believe that. But then his wife's like, no, it's true. I saw them at a dinner that evening. Remember we were ordering furniture and you were out doing some BS? And I was like, oh, I'm just here doing furniture stuff. So I went out to grab a bite to eat and I saw them. And he's like, well, I believe you, so I guess that's the case. Something fishy is still happening here, so don't go anywhere. I'm gonna be around investigating stuff. And Beast is like, for sure, got it. So then as soon as they walk into the building, they go to like the bushes to change back into their like superhero fatigues, which is like the Beast just being the Beast and Angel not wearing any X-Men uniform, just being topless with wings. Oh, good stuff. So they fly around, and then they get attacked by the Griffon again. And as I mentioned, the Griffin is we learned that the Griffin is a member of the Secret Empire, and him and Linda at some point get into an argument about what's he doing and why is he there, and she can handle it herself, and yada 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 yada. Anyway, so they have another tussle, and they fight and fight and fight, and Angel looks like he gets injured, but it's not. He's okay. And then Beast and him are wrestling around, and then Beast is gonna like, oh, we're both gonna fall to our death. Very similar to the previous fight with Quasimodo, where he kind of is like, oh, I guess we're both done. But then Angel comes the last second and knocks the Griffin out with a big punch-a-rooney in his face. and saves Beast. And they're like, all right, well, we better get out of here before the coppers show up and question us. And then they go and they like hug it out. And then, Angel's like, well, I see that you want to be by yourself, which is fine, but don't forget we're friends and we're always there for you. So if you need anything, you can always turn to the X-Men. He's like, I will, bosom champ. And yeah, that wraps up Amazing Adventures 15, which is the 5th issue of like the Beast solo story. So who was the mysterious woman from before? Well, if we haven't guessed by now, it's Vera. Vera is Hank's old girlfriend from back in the day. She's Zelda's friend, who's Bobby's like original girlfriend, and I think they get back together a little bit later as well. But so Vera is very concerned. We don't get like the full reason. Something about the end of the world if Hank doesn't use his like mutation science capabilities to their fullest and kind of figure that out. But this issue, Amazing Adventures number 16, starts off with a group of hippies driving around, and then they see the Beast, who's now blue. He's blue now. So the second time he took his secondary mutation thing, which made him not invulnerable, which took away his invulnerability to like bullets and damage, also made him blue. So he's no longer Gray Beast, he's Blue Beast. The Blue Beast we know and love forever and ever and ever before he turns into Blue Cat Beast. But that's the story for another day. So Beast jumps around and he gets them to stop, and then he comes and transforms back into regular Hank McCoy and grabs Vera, and they get a ride into Rutland, Vermont? Not Vermont, Virginia. Rutledge, Virginia. Anyway, they're on the moves, and this is all, Vera's like very concerned, and we got to hurry and make sure that the world doesn't get destroyed and all this stuff, but also we got to be inconspicuous. So they go to like this Halloween Day parade, and they're hanging out there. Meanwhile, guess who shows up? The Juggernaut. Juggernaut gets pooped out of the Cyrotech dimension, the Ruby dimension. And then we get some recall of like his various adventures with fighting Doctor Strange and then Eternity. Now, there are like fundamental forces in the Marvel Universe, and I'm not super read up on this because I never really delved into like their spacefaring stuff all that much. But there's like death. Like death is an actual individual, and for most people who are familiar with the Thanos Infinity War saga from the movies, the actual reason Thanos wanted to get all the Infinity Stones and like take away half the world or whatever was far less nuanced in the comics originally, from my understanding and my recollection, in that he wanted to get Death to fall in love with him, like the personification of Death, who's like a fundamental force of the universe. But there's also Eternity, and there's a few others. So the fact that Eternity essentially banished Juggernaut to some like horrible realm where he was going to age out and die is very interesting. Anyway, so for some unknown reason, he keeps getting like pooped out and then getting sucked back into this realm, and he's like very concerned about it, as anyone should be. But the Beast like sees him, and when they're in the Halloween festival, and he's like, oh no, I gotta take care of this. So he's like, Vera, go hide in like the hotel we're staying at or whatever. I gotta take care of something. So then he goes to like an alleyway and Supermans himself into like his regular like blue skin stuff, and goes and starts like fighting with Juggernaut. And so they go back and forth quite a bit. And if you remember, Juggernaut's weakness is having his helmet off. In the cartoon, if that's what you're more familiar with, it's because it allows the psychic powers to work against him. But in the comic, it's more like the helmet is without the helmet, he's not fully Juggernaut or something, and so then he's more easily like manipulatable or something. Anyway, so Beast is trying to get his helmet off. That's not working. So they kind of brawl a little bit, and then Beast is trying to use his intellect to trick Juggernaut into losing. So he tries to get him to like drown in the water. That doesn't work. He tries to electrocute him by having him run through like a power transistor, which probably powers his entire city. It's pretty big, and it's by the river. But that doesn't work, even though Juggernaut destroys it. Don't worry about that, though. It never comes up again. It's not important. Then he climbs up like a steep cliff that's kind of like the rocks are falling, sort of, but it's not like a rock fall. It's just not like super secure. So as Juggernaut's trying to climb up, he keeps like slipping down, and Beast is like, all right. So then he transforms back into Hank McCoy. When I say transforms, he just like puts these clothes and the mask on, which apparently he was just carrying in like a knapsack or like a fanny pack this whole time. And he heads to this party the hippies were throwing, and he's like hiding out in there, and there's like all sorts of comments about superheroes, and then Juggernaut busts in, and then Hank like runs away and is very sneaky, and Juggernaut wants to kill Hank, who is the Beast, and he knows that, he doesn't, for some reason, know that the Blue Beast is the same as the Beast that, like, the Blue Beast is a different character than, like, Hank the Beast, the X-Men, who he's more familiar with, because Hank, like, hides in a room, but he's not really hiding. He took his mask off, and then when Juggernaut comes into, like, smashy, he turns around and goes, "Roar!" with his, like, blue face, and Juggernaut, like, freaks out for a second, which gives Beast a chance to leap up, tear the Hamlet off, and be like, "Ta-da! Now you're in trouble." And Juggernaut, like, freaks out and runs away, and he's like, "You've killed me! I am dead!" And you're like, it's a very strong reaction. So Beast follows him outside, and eventually he sees that he starts punching Juggernaut a bunch. And Juggernaut's getting, like, real old real fast. And he's like, "Holy shit, what happened?" He's like, "You took my helmet off, and I was cursed to die, and the helmet was the only thing keeping me young or alive, and I'm gonna get absorbed back into, like, the cryotech dimension, and that'll be the end of me." And he like super old looking, and he disappears into that. And the Beast is like, "Huh." And then we see the hippies talking about, like, "Oh man, Halloween's the best. It's time to let loose." And then we get, like, I don't know why that's there. And then we get Beast again, and he's standing on, like, in the moonlight on a cliff, and he's looking up into the sky, and it's like, but the Beast, he stands up, all these people are celebrating Halloween and doing whatever, but the Beast, he stands all alone. The end. I was like, what? That was weird. That was, like, a very poetic end to, like, a comic book. I felt like the ending was unjustified, its existence, by, like, the rest of what was going on. But yeah, so I guess Juggernaut's dead. Of course, no one's ever dead, and we know the Juggernaut comes back, but he's dead as far as the Beast is concerned, and the Beast is blue. And what does Vera need help with? Who knows? Cool. And so now it's time to wrap up the Beast arc, and it wraps up with a whimper, not a bang. Because what happens is, I guess they're going to cancel this run of Beast. So we have the whole thing with Vera, where she has to get him because he's a mutant and all this craziness. Well, not even a mutant. He's the master mutant. There's all this setup, and then I guess they changed their mind, or it wasn't selling or whatnot. So they just cancel it. But before they cancel it, they reprint the Beast origin that we've already read and that I've already covered in the X-Men. Literally, just the exact same thing. So Amazing Adventures number 17 is just the recap of how the Beast became the Beast, and then in, like, one page he's like, and then I fought Magneto, and then I took my potion and it turned me into what I am now, and now I'm gonna leave, and I'll show up again someday, but for now, goodbye. And it's the end. And I was like, well, that was very anticlimactic. And we know Beast sticks around because he pops back up in the Avengers and back the X-Men eventually as well, and then he does show up in Secret Empire, which is where we're going to get to next, with the following kind of cameo. So we had the cameos before the Beast, and then we're going to have the cameos post-Beast video, and then we're going to get into Uncanny X-Men, the second generation, which is Wolverine and those guys. But yeah, so I was excited to see where this was going, and I guess I never read this before because I didn't I didn't realize it was just like a reprint, essentially, just like everything else X-Men related at this time. So it's really dark days for the X-Men. I like the Beast stuff generally. I wish we could have got some resolution on, like, the Baxter guy and Miss Baxter and everything. And like, spoiler alert, we find out we get some conclusion with Linda and his relationship and everything going on with that. And I have some guesses about how the Beast stuff wraps up with Vera, but I don't know if it ever comes up again. From what I remember, I don't remember this, like, ever really being addressed post this. So I guess it's just, I don't know what they were thinking, but hopefully it was fun. But it's good. I like seeing the transition of the Beast, and it kind of helps with understanding why he's not around in the future Uncanny X-Men, and what's he do and how he becomes blue and all that good stuff. But yeah, there you go. Cool. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch y'all later.